This meeting of the School Board of the City of Virginia Beach is now in session. This is our formal meeting format. At this time, I ask that my colleagues and everyone in attendance please silence your electronic devices and phones. I ask my colleagues to acknowledge their presence on the voting board. Mr. McDonald and Mrs. Holtz are not here this evening. I ask that everyone in attendance please join me in a moment of silence. Please rise as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now proceed with public awards and recognitions. Mrs. Manning.
If you're looking for a trendy restaurant concept, ask these Tallwood High School students. They placed first in the Virginia Pros Start Student Invitational, sponsored by the Virginia Restaurant, Lodging, and Travel Association. Let's meet them now. Treasure Gary, India Holland, Tyler Schuster, and Christopher Zontz. The team won in the management competition for their Asian-themed Bao Town restaurant, serving steamed bao bun sandwiches, gluten-free rice bowls, bubble tea, and more. Their mission was to provide delicious Asian cuisine quickly in a moderate price and in a comfortable environment. To win, they were judged on the concept, menu pricing, marketing, and critical thinking in responding to situational challenges. Congratulations, students.
Next, the school board would like to recognize first place winners in the 2019 Educators Rising statewide competition for aspiring teachers. Michaela Lynch from Cox High School won first place in children's literature K-3 for writing a story about a girl named Clara who is encouraged to never give up and to believe in herself. Taylor Schooler, also from Cox High School, won first place in exploring education administration careers. After shadowing her school's assistant principal, she gained a greater understanding about teacher observations, interviewing potential new staff, and bus duty. Nahida Nassan from Kellam High School won the Educators Rising Leadership Award for organizing a pageant for children with Down syndrome. Fellow Kellam High School students Caroline Motley, Mackenzie Worcester, and Reagan Vaughn, along with Nahida Nassan, won first place in Inside Our Schools. These students showcased how Kellam incorporates student voice in their activities and classroom instruction. Congratulations to all our aspiring educators.
Our last recognition is for students who won first place at the 2019 Health Occupation Students of America Future Health Professionals State Leadership Conference. Let's meet them. Princess Anne High School's Kayla Pavin won the Dental Terminology event, identifying numerous terms such as maxillaria and endodontics. Next are students from Bayside High School's Health Science Academy. Winning the Medical Law and Ethics event is Emma Jarvis, who scored the highest in a 100-item test. Eleanor Stotch took first place in the medical spelling event by first passing a 50-item test before winning a medical spelling bee. Tia Smith won the veterinarian science event by first completing a 50-item test and then responding to a timed written scenario that required critical thinking. Another winner is Rex Soriano, who was the top finisher in an exam about the effects of health and disease in populations. Anne Truong won the healthcare issue exam, a timed 50-item test on current health-related issues. The team of Lauren Aspirin, Tamara Fang, Caitlin Garcia, Emily Quinn, Jada Ray, and Lauren Wolf won the public health team event with their dynamic and effective presentation about civilian readiness. In a biomedical debate, the team of Jonathan Gilliam, Madison Longwater, Pearl Rennick, and Lillian Woodruff won their rationales about pain management. Kira Myers and Tara Sellers created a video showcasing how they improved an existing medical innovation and then defended it before a panel of judges. Go ahead, yes, clap for them. They couldn't come. Who knows what medical invention they're working on tonight. But congratulations, all of you young students. Way to go. Keep it up. And let's give them one last round of applause. Woo-hoo, good job. Pain management, people. I'm going to get in touch with y'all. I would love to hear what you did. Okay? Thank you. Madam Chairwoman, this concludes our recognitions for this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Weems.
Okay. I was like, I think I'm worried we'd kick it over.
Dr. Spence, we look forward to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, and good evening, Chairwoman Anderson, Chairwoman Melnick, and members of the board. I am pleased tonight to be able to present to you and to our community watching at home 5 things to know about Virginia Beach City Public Schools this month. This Wednesday, April the 10th, I want to invite all of our students, staff, and community members to join me, as well as school divisions across Virginia, in celebrating Purple Up for Military Kids Day. The event is held in conjunction with the Month of the Military Child, recognized nationwide each April. By wearing purple, individuals will show their support for the strength, sacrifices, and contributions of military-connected children. At number 2, and speaking of the Month of the Military Child, for the rest of April, you can stop by Lynn Haven Mall to see the Art of Being a Military Child exhibit. This exhibit showcases artwork that was submitted to a contest asking students to depict what it means to be a military dependent. More than 700 entries were received, and they cover topics such as deployments, transitions, patriotism, family, and school. Third this month, for families with children turning 5 on or before September 30th, mark April 23rd on your calendar. Tuesday, April 23rd, we will once again be hosting our kindergarten registration and school orientation event. Our incoming kindergartners will get a tour of their school, meet new teachers, and even go on a bus ride while parents have time to complete their registration paperwork and meet with school administrators. Kindergarten registration and school orientation will be Tuesday, April 23rd at 9 a.m. at all of the division's elementary schools with kindergarten programs. Registration forms and a list of necessary registration paperwork is available at vbschools.com. Fourth, job seekers interested in working for VBCPS are encouraged to attend the school division's Career Expo on Saturday, April the 27th from 9 a.m. to noon at Lansdowne High School. Representatives from a variety of offices, departments, and schools will be available to speak with attendees about opportunities to work as teachers, tradesmen, counselors, custodians, bus drivers, school administrators, cafeteria staff, teacher assistants, office associates, and more. Those interested in attending are encouraged to register online in advance at vbschools.com. And finally, at number 5, let me be the first to wish all of our students, staff members, and families a wonderful and relaxing spring break. Spring break this year begins this Friday, April the 12th, and will run through April the 19th. We will look forward to seeing everyone back on Monday, April the 22nd. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. That does complete my report.
Thank you, Dr. Spence. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on agenda items this evening?
Yes, ma'am, we do. We have two. First one is R.M. Marsh, and then we have Mary Zepnikowski.
Good evening, school board members. R.M. Marsh again. I spoke to you a couple weeks ago when you were talking about increasing the spending that you were going to ask the city council for. I brought with me the budget document that I've been reviewing with one of the council members. It's a fairly large document. The school board is mentioned in there. And I thought it best to get the exact numbers from Farrell's online budgets to compare and talk to you about how much you're already asking before you ask for any more. When I look at the numbers on there,
Excuse me, ma'am. Are
Yes.
you speaking about something that's on our agenda this evening?
yes, I'm speaking on action item number 12. You're doing a budget revision.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Currently, your budget that you're asking for, the superintendent's needs for the upcoming school year, 2019-2020, is going to be $906,620,478. That is $24,526,960 more dollars. About $24.5 million more dollars that you're already asking for. So you have increased the amount of money that you are asking from the city to a pretty good amount. It's about 2.6%, I believe, if I read Farrell's numbers correctly. What I've also noticed in reading the documents is you're down this year 334 students. So I don't know many places where you're serving less people or doing less and you're asking for more money, but it happens here at the Virginia Beach schools. So I wanted to point that out. Before you ask for more money, I think you should really reevaluate if you can get that money from the budget you already have and the $24.5 million you already have. Because this year, you only had $882 million and you had some reversion funds. You had $24 million in reversion funds, and a year ago, you had $20 million in reversion funds. So there seems to be some budgeting that needs to have a sharper pencil, because overall in the last 5 years, Superintendent Spence, you have 2,039 fewer students. So we have fewer students and we are asking for more money. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We have a lot of needs in the city of Virginia Beach, from flooding to people who are living in poverty. We have almost 47,000 people living in poverty. We've had almost 38,000 water shutoffs in the last 14 months. These are numbers I've checked with public utilities. These are numbers I've checked with human services. And to increase the budget, to ask for more money, Ms. Anderson, seems to me a great push. And I think one of the things that I want to ask you to do, because I've been looking into what you're doing, you had an audit of your travel. You have not had a travel audit in almost a decade. Your last travel audit was on June 4th, 2010. And in here, a number of recommendations are made on how to save money on your travel. And in looking at some of the things that have been circulating on Facebook, I'm not seeing those things being done. And I think it would behoove us if we did sharpen our pencil on our travel. Because when I looked at this, I was somewhat taken aback that we have $2.8 million in 2010 for travel, professional, and improvement. That's a lot of money for travel and professional improvement. I don't know what the current number is because there isn't a current audit, but I'm asking that a current audit be done and that we look at some of these travel expenses that have been circulating that look very large compared to what most families could afford in Virginia Beach. Thank you.
Mary Zepnikowski.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson and Dr. Spence, for letting me speak. We would like to thank you for considering the school bus drivers to drive for the something in the water. Everybody is excited about it. There are over 400 of us signed up, and I understand they're going to try to do it in shifts for 5 hours and then an hour to clean the bus. So thank you very much for considering us to do that. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, those are all the speakers I have signed up for the hearing on agenda items.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our March 26th meeting. Mrs. Melnick has made the motion, seconded by Mr. Edwards. The voting board is open. The minutes have been approved. If there is no objection on the agenda this evening, we will move item number 19, which is vote on remaining actions, to become number 14, so that it will allow us to take action on the bus issue right after we have heard the information about it. The motion, is there a motion? Is there any objection? Motion is made by Mrs. Melnick. No, you can do that now.
Could we move it down to vote on remaining action items, just to maybe give us a little bit more time to process it, since we're hearing all this information for the first time this evening? Could we just vote on it down on vote on remaining action items on number 19?
That is where it is. That is, it
Okay,
is
you said to
19.
move it-
Move
I
it to
thought-
14. It'll be right after we've finished information.
And what's the purpose of moving it up a few line items? I'd rather have a little bit more time to process it, since we're
Because
hearing it
number
all.
9, we need to have it, we need to have a record of it, and 19 actually happens, I believe, after our formal meeting. Is
No.
that correct? Yes.
Cammie says no.
Yes, 19,
No, 20 is adjournment, so you.
right, but our formal meeting ends
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
before that.
Yeah.
So we need to have it on
record.
record. We need to have it on
Okay.
record. So we
Your
want to move it
non-agenda
up so it's
goes to
still on
off record, so.
camera.
Okay, I'll take back my objection, but I'm just not happy with receiving the information and then having to vote on it. It's
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll be able to answer all our questions
I
during
hope
our
so.
information part of our agenda. Okay. So, Mr. Edwards?
I just wanted to point out, I think it's more appropriate to do it after the presentation. On the action agenda, we'll have a number of items after that a large number of people that may be here for that item would have to sit through to wait for the vote. And I think it's more accommodating to the public to get the vote over once we have the information rather than asking
That's what we're
them.
doing, Mr. Edwards.
I understand.
Okay.
I was trying to explain
Okay.
why I thought the shift to action was appropriate.
Okay, yeah. It's not a shift to action. It's moving number 19, which is the one that had to do with taking action on items after the fact. So we're just moving it up one, up to 14. Okay, so Mrs. Melnick has made the motion, seconded by Mrs. Rye. Voting board is open. Okay, the amended agenda is adopted. One more vote. The amended agenda has been adopted. The consent agenda has 2 resolutions this evening. The first resolution is for National Month of the Military Child, and the second resolution is for National Volunteer Month. Mr. Edwards will read the resolution for Month of the Military Child.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution for National Month of the Military Child, that month being April of 2019. Whereas approximately 18,000 students enrolled in Virginia Beach City Public Schools are military connected, with the majority having at least one parent serving on active duty or in the reserves of the armed forces. And whereas these military connected youth and their families have unique needs and face distinct challenges due to high mobility, lengthy deployments of one or both parents, and the stresses of loved ones serving in times of combat. And whereas the school division reaffirms its commitment to providing support, resources, and enriching programs to enhance the educational experiences of military-connected youth. And whereas the Virginia Beach City Public School Board's Compass to 2020 strategic plan creates opportunities to actively engage military-connected parents and families in supporting student achievement and outcomes for success. And whereas April has been recognized by the Department of Defense since 1986 as the month of the military child, now therefore be it resolved that the school board of the City of Virginia Beach officially recognizes April as the month of the military child, and be it further resolved that the school board of the City of Virginia Beach encourages all school staff to initiate, support, and participate in special activities to recognize the exceptional role and unique sacrifices of our military-connected youth, make in our nation's best interest, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread across the official minutes of this board.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Our next resolution is for the National Volunteer Month. Mrs. Melnick.
National Volunteers and Education Appreciation Month, April 2019. Whereas volunteering and service to others are among the hallmarks of a strong community, and whereas the school board of the City of Virginia Beach supports active community engagement as one of the 4 goals in the division's strategic framework, Compass to 2020, and whereas volunteerism mobilizes all the resources of our community, and whereas volunteers in the Virginia Beach City Public Schools number more than 35,000 annually and donate nearly 400,000 hours of service to our school system with an estimated value of more than $9.6 million. And whereas volunteers are vital members of the education team who willingly give of their time, talents, and valuable resources. Now therefore be it resolved that the school board of the City of Virginia Beach officially recognize the month of April as Volunteers in Education Appreciation Month, and be it resolved that the school board of the City of Virginia Beach encourages all school staff to initiate, support, and participate in activities designed to recognize school system volunteers, and be it finally resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread across the official minutes of this board.
Thank you, Mrs. Melnick. Also under the consent agenda this evening, we have the Technical and Career Education Carl Perkins Grant for school year 1920? Right. Item C under information is the 2019-2020 Special Education Annual Plan Part B flow through application. And item D is for religious exemptions. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent
Madam
agenda.
Chair, I just want to confirm that you are approving the Technical and Career Carl Perkins grant as amended, updated yesterday afternoon with the current information.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Mrs. Melnick has made the motion, seconded by Mrs. Riggs. The voting board is open. The consent agenda has been approved. The first action item this evening is the personnel report and administrative appointments. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the personnel report and administrative appointments. Mrs. Felton has made the motion. Mr. Edwards has seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, the voting board is open. The motion is passed and personnel report has been approved. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the amended budget resolution. The motion is made by Mrs. Rye, seconded by Mrs. Felton. Mrs. Melnick, will you read the amended budget resolution, please?
Amended Budget Resolution, Fiscal Year 2019-2020. Whereas the mission of the Virginia Beach City Public Schools in partnership with the entire community is to empower every student to become a lifelong learner who is a responsible, productive, and engaged citizen within the global community. And whereas the school board of the City of Virginia Beach approved the fiscal year 2019-2020 school board proposed operating budget on March 5th, 2019, and whereas since that date, state final budget numbers have been communicated to school divisions, and VBCPS will receive $655,372 less than the March 5th, 2019 budget resolution indicates. In addition, VBCPS will be required to pay an additional $244,224 in a required local match for the Virginia Preschool Initiative Plus grant. And whereas the debt service numbers have been updated and VBCPS will pay $2,043,114 less than the March 5th, 2019 budget resolution indicates, and whereas the adjusted state funding will require a reduction of local revenue sharing funds in the amount of $421,977, and whereas the net effect of the above adjustments to the state revenues, the local expenses, and the debt service amounts is $1,321,573 and reflects the reconciliation of final fiscal year 2019 budget numbers to the March 5th, 2019 budget resolution numbers. And whereas on March 12th, 2019, the school board also approved a resolution titled Resolution to Request Remaining Funds Needed to Complete Full-Day Kindergarten Implementation, which requested additional funding in the amount of $4,859,000. And said resolution was communicated on March 13th, 2019 to the mayor, members of city council, the city manager, and the city clerk. Now therefore be it resolved that the amount of $1,321,573 be allocated to the school's operating budget and $721,541 be allocated to the school's PAYGO to CIP Project 1-179 renovations and replacements, HVAC Phase 3, and be it further resolved that the City Council consider the request for providing the remaining funds for completing the implementation of full-day kindergarten as part of the budget ordinance for fiscal year 2019-2020, and be it finally resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread across the official minutes of this school board, and the clerk of the school board is directed to deliver a copy of this resolution to each member of the City Council, the city manager, and the city clerk.
Thank you, Mrs. Melnick. Is there further discussion? Mrs. Manning.
Farrell, is this a time-sensitive document that we have to vote on in order to get it to City Council by a certain date?
Yes. The board presents its budget to the City Council on the 23rd, the week we get back from spring break. You don't have another board meeting until the 30th. I have to give the city our reconciliation numbers before that date. I'm told the City Council has a goal of adopting its budget ordinance on May 7th. So the staff needs lead time to provide all that documentation for the council's budget ordinance.
Okay.
So that's why we're coming tonight.
Okay. I have some concerns about allocating the extra money to CIP. I was really hoping that perhaps we could give a one-time bonus to teachers with that money. I know that it has to be one-time funds, and we can't put it back into the account. And I was trying to get some numbers on that today, but I was a little behind with all the discipline hearings we had planned for the last couple of days. I don't know if anyone else would be interested in having that discussion of not sending the money to the CIP project, but perhaps providing a one-time bonus to our classroom teachers and dividing that up. I tried to get some numbers today.
I can give you a
Okay.
number. So the number is roughly $135. If it was, now remind you, this is only if you're talking about full-time teaching positions. $135 after FICA, but before taxes.
Before taxes.
Correct.
And then my second request, I feel like we're asking for a tax increase again with it saying further resolved. So we're going on record a second time voting on this tax increase. So I feel that if I'm voting yes for this amended budget resolution, I'm voting to support a tax increase. That may not be the intention, but that's the wording here, and that's how it could be looked at in the future if someone is looking at this document and they see my yes vote next to it. So, you know, I can't support it as it's written because of that. And then I'd also like to change the CIP.
Is there further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the voting board is open. The motion has passed. So the amended budget resolution for fiscal year 2019-2020 has passed. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the budget transfers. The motion is made by Mrs. Riggs, seconded by Mrs. Melnick. Is there discussion? Mr. Hunziker, could you explain some of the transfers, please?
Sure. Thank you.
I can see that.
Wait a minute.
This is the time of year when the budget and finance staff does a deep analysis of what we believe our year-end spending is going to be. Based on that analysis and all the things that we have to consider in that analysis, we are recommending that these budget transfers be made at this time so that procurements can be made, purchase orders can be listed. A number of these relate to summer projects. As soon as the students are gone, facility services and DOT will move into a lot of the schools to begin a lot of this work. And so it's a critical need to go ahead and let's get the transfers made, move to the right budget codes. All of these budget codes relate to the fact that they exceed the superintendent's delegated authority of $250,000, and per board policy and our city agreement, we have a lump sum appropriation, so it doesn't have to go to the city council, but it does need to be approved by the board. We've given you basically a summary. We have to move money to cover the shortfall in the McKinney-Vento, the transportation of homeless students. Obviously,
Right.
that's more than $250,000. We have a need to move funds to cover a shortfall. We have to have special teacher assistants on certain school buses for certain special ed students. They have to be on the school buses. The additional cost of that, more than $250,000, so we've under budgeted that item. And then there's a number of summer projects like refinishing gym floors, painting full schools, 10 schools, and there's some additional purchase of interactive whiteboards and to replace some Chromebooks. Those are generally the kind of things that we're talking about.
Thank you.
Mrs. Manning.
Mrs. Manning?
Yeah, so if you could go back a little bit to the updated document that we just got, the $2.48 million that's going from various maintenance services and custodial services into general maintenance and repair, what is that for?
Well, in general, maintenance and repair would be where they would do the replacement, refinishing of the gym floors, where they would do the painting of schools.
Okay.
It's just moving the money from custodial into
Yep.
where we're actually going to spend the money.
Okay, and then
It doesn't really cross a category. It's just within the object codes of
Okay.
those units.
And then we're transferring funds into various elementary, middle, senior classrooms in the amount of, looks like around $2 million for computer equipment. What is the computer equipment that it's for?
It's really for, we have, we don't have We have, it's
It's the panels.
It's the
So you know, we're on
panels,
that project of
interactive
replacing the whiteboards with
whiteboards.
panels.
it's
Yeah, the
interactive
whiteboard panels.
whiteboards.
So this is 2 million for the interactive whiteboards.
And then some for Chromebook replacement.
How many Chromebooks are we replacing?
I'll have to get you that number from DOT.
Do you have an approximate amount of Chromebooks that we're replacing?
This year, the planning to replace 18,000 Chromebooks.
You have to turn your,
This year, we're planning to replace 18,000 Chromebooks.
18,000?
Yes.
Wow. So that's the majority of the money.
No, it's part of because their funding comes from different sources. So we want to get a head start because we want to have the Chromebooks in place before the school starts.
So, do we have, so this is across elementary, middle, and high school.
Yes, ma'am.
Why do we need to replace so many?
Because there's a life cycle in terms of how long the Google system, the Chrome operating system runs on the Chromebooks. So in order to make sure that we have a good replacement cycle, we have come up with a 4-year replacement cycle. So
4 years.
Yes, so 1/4 of the fleet would be replaced every year to come to that.
Wow.
Needs a new computer.
A lot of money.
6 years old.
Thank you, Mr.
Needs it.
Kapoor. That's a lot of money. And one of the reasons why I didn't vote for one-to-one Chromebooks at the elementary level. We could use, we could use that money toward reducing class sizes and teacher salaries. So I'm, disappointed with that. Thank you, Mr. Hunsaker.
I have a question. Are those Chromebooks being replaced mostly on the elementary level or on the high school level where they were started to begin with because they've worn their time out?
No, the Chromebooks will be replaced on a 4-year cycle. So depending on when the Chromebooks were purchased, the oldest ones will be replaced.
Right, so it wouldn't be the elementary ones
They
that we're
could be-
replacing.
They could
Right.
be across all 3 levels.
Right, I see, yeah, where they started first.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Not, the voting board is open? I think. Is it open?
It was.
The motion is passed. The first information item this evening is for textbook adoption for secondary math.
Good evening, Chairwoman excuse me, Chairwoman Anderson, Vice Chair Melnick, members of the school board, and Dr. Spence. I'm here this evening to provide you with information regarding the textbook adoption committee selection for secondary math from grades 6 math through Algebra 2 Trig, recommended for consideration for implementation in the fall of 2019. Before presenting our recommendation, I'd like to thank our math coordinators, Dina McElligott and Thomas Coker, who are with me tonight, as well as committee members for dedicating their time and efforts to choose the best resource for our students. The committee recommended its first choice as a digital resource, MathSpace. This digital product provides aligned lessons to our standards and not only provides immediate feedback, but additional resources for students who are struggling with the mathematical concept. MathSpace also provides real-world applications that require high-level critical thinking skills. As seen on this slide, the annual cost for this product is just under $215,000 per year. The recommended contract would be a 3-year contract with the option to be extended for an additional 3 years, 1 year at a time, at the original pricing level. I feel it's important to note our current textbook has been in adoption for 8 years, and when this textbook was adopted in the few years after, there was a need for a digital resource to support our students. The resource currently in use has been a cost above and beyond the textbook. Over the past year, the math team has used Open Education Resources, or OER materials, excuse me, in the teacher-created materials to eliminate the need for an actual textbook. These materials are now housed in Schoology, and for this adoption cycle, the only request is to purchase a digital resource which eliminates the need to spend additional funds on a textbook. Thank thank you for your time this evening. We stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
Do we have any questions? Mr. Edwards?
I think there's a big savings here that doesn't jump out from your presentation. Could you just round figures tell us what the previous,
I can give you exact figures.
all right, what that previous textbook cost?
So over the 8-year period of having the textbooks from grade 6 through Algebra 2 Trig, we spent $1.765 million. That's $220,000 a year just on the textbook. And then we had a digital supplement to the textbook that was an additional cost to that. So actually the textbook over the 8 years cost us $7.12 per student, where this software is coming in at just under $7 a student without requesting the need for an additional textbook.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Paul.
All right, thanks, and a quick happy birthday to my wife.
All right.
She does.
Yes. Happy birthday.
Madam Chair and Vice Chair, school board members, and Dr. Spence, I'm Cami Linetti. On behalf of the Policy Review Committee, I'll be presenting this evening's recommendations from the Policy Review Committee's March 14th meeting. Most of the changes we have tonight are basically Scrivenger's changes. On Policy 547, having to do with school-sponsored associations, clubs, and school organizations. These are mostly Scrivener changes. We updated a couple of the procedures. We are recommending that the superintendent or designee make up specific regulations and guidelines for the procedures and not include them in the policy. And most of this was just reorganization or changing the words. There are not significant changes to Policy 547. Under Policy 561, this has to do with first aid and emergency care services. The major change in this comes in paragraph A, where brings us into alignment with state law that there must be 3 school employees that have a current certification or training in emergency first aid, CPR, and the use of automated external defibrillators. And if there's more than 1 student diagnosed with diabetes, school must have 2 school employees who are trained in the administration of insulin and glucagon. The rest are simply Scrivener's changes having to do either with updating languages or changing the legal references. Under Policy 571, we amended this in January of 2018, so it was looked at last year. So just minor Scrivener changes as we were going through the policies on there, updating some words and capitalizations. There are no other changes to Policy 71. Under Policy 72, again, these are Scrivener's changes. Policy 72 has to do notification of school board meetings. In particular, the change comes in paragraph B, which indicates that the clerk will plan to have notice to all school board meetings made directly to the requester, including electronic notices. That would be the only change recommended for Policy 7-2. Under Policy 7.3, this has to do with access to records. In particular, under subsection B, fee for search time and copying, we've added a sentence that says, as also authorized by Virginia Code, the school division may assess charges for the cost of staff time to search for and produce responsive records, and those charges are based on the hourly rate provided by the Department of Human Resources. Again, this just brings us into alignment with the Virginia Freedom Information Act. Under Policy 7.6, relations with the news media. Again, Scrivener's changes, mostly we're just changing some updated words on there, reflecting current terminology that's used. We actually amended this in 2014, so there were not significant changes. Again, we're just, instead of referring to radio and television, we're referring to media. We take out those references, and we updated having to do with our ongoing procedures to recognize adult students. Otherwise, there are no changes other than that to Policy 7.6. Policy 710 is communications from the public. We also amended this in 2014. So the only changes we've added would be in the first paragraph, which would read, the Department of Media and Communications also will be notified such complaints where appropriate. And this has to do with communications from the public. This gives our Media and Communications Officer, CO, the opportunity to deal with issues that are coming in. That would be the only change recommended for that section. Under Policy 715, this has to do with distribution of announcements of outside communications. You remember, we looked at this pretty extensively last year in April of 2018. Again, just updating it. There were just a few minor Scrivener's changes, updating or capitalizing words and recognizing new policies. Other than that, there are no recommended particular changes to this section. And those would be all the policy recommendations coming out of the Policy Review Committee. Are there any questions on any of these policies that I can answer at this time?
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Linetti. If you do have any questions or anything to add, I guess they can email you
Right,
or
this will
Mrs.
come up at
Wright.
this next school board meeting for action item. If there's any questions, please bring it to Mrs. Rye's attention or mine. We'll take care of making corrections
Right.
at that time.
Thank you. Our next information item is one we've all been waiting for. School bus use for a city event, Something in the Water. Welcome, Mr. Freeman.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, Dr. Spence, members of the board. As you know, we were approached by the city to support the Something in the Water event coming up at the end of April. This is an informational item to prepare you to vote to authorize the superintendent to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the city of Virginia Beach. Several members of our team are here to answer any of your questions. We have legal, HR, transportation. Mary Zebnikowski was intended to be here to be able to answer your questions. She had a meeting at 7 that she had to go to, so that's why she presented to you earlier to support the bus drivers. Before we get into the questions, Dave Hanson, our city manager, is here and requested to address the board.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it. Madam Chair, members of the
Good evening.
board,
evening.
Superintendent
Welcome.
Spence, thanks for allowing me to visit with you this evening and to talk about something in the water, something that is catching on not only in the city of Virginia Beach, but across the entire Commonwealth, if not the East Coast of the United States. It's a great opportunity for the school board to partner with the city council in support of an initiative that's not just a 3-day festival, but promises to be something that's going to be a year-round transformative initiative that will provide opportunities for nonprofits to contribute to the betterment of the city, to bring culture, to bring diversity, to bring a welcoming and inclusive culture to the city of Virginia Beach, to bring art and music and design, and to partner with one of our most famous citizens of Virginia Beach. A lot of discussion has taken place about this initiative, this request that I made of your superintendent, a letter that I sent to him on 15 March. Being made aware on the 10th of March that the producers were going to pursue a massive shuttle program, our team said, well, let's give an opportunity to the people that know the roads the best. Let's give an opportunity to those that transport our students that are very good drivers. Let's give an opportunity for us to use our own city assets to support a city initiative that is geared to be of great benefit to our school system, to partner with schools in a myriad of ways, already demonstrated through Pharrell Williams' initiative in the Grow Smart program and his opportunity to assist children that have yet to enter your kindergartens and your elementary schools. An initiative that is going to see year-round contributions from folks that want to be a part of something distinctly different, to support our becoming that preferred East Coast, coastal city on the East Coast, to be that unique and exciting place that people want to come visit and move here and become a part of our city to help us grow and to provide economic vitality, which helps us afford one of the best school systems that we have in this nation. So when I was approached on the 11th of March about this idea, I started thinking about the optics of it. And I had an occasion to run into Aaron when we were on a lunch break, and he's going this way and I'm going that way, and stopped for a moment. I said, Aaron, we've been thinking about this school bus thing for shuttling our visitors to help reduce the congestion that will take place and to get them to the oceanfront to participate in what's going to be far more than just a music event on the sand, with activations that will take place throughout the oceanfront that will energize the center of gravity in our convention center, where there will be mentoring and there will be subject matter expert opportunities for students to be exposed to ways of thinking in technology and music, in design and in fashion. And I said, think about it. And Aaron, he was a bit apprehensive when I approached him on that. So I reflected on it for another 2 days, talking to staff, taking a look at it, getting some sensing from my staff, and I realized this is a great opportunity for the school system to participate in something that my council had already moved all in on unanimously. And so the opportunity to provide overtime and extra pay for those that know the road the best, to say that they were part of that inaugural event called Something in the Water in Virginia Beach, which will become the event of the season, the start of the summer season on the East Coast. I made the decision to send him a letter on the 15th of March. And that set into motion a series of staff coordination efforts to say, okay, what is this really going to become? And thanks to your staff working diligently to ask the questions, and our staff working with the Something in the Water LLC that's putting this together, the producers, the attorneys. I want to thank your attorney for rolling up her sleeves and putting together the draft authorization memorandum of agreement that you have before you to consider this evening. And I also want to thank our city attorney's office, because complementary to the agreement that we have before you, we, the city, have to execute an agreement with a reimbursement and indemnification agreement with the production LLC, so that we are assured of being reimbursed for all the costs associated with the shuttle services provided by the school district, to be indemnified for all legal costs associated with any accidents and legal actions that take place associated with the use of that, so that neither the school board nor the city risk management would be obligated to pay those. And so I appreciate your time. I appreciate your staff's time. I appreciate your attorney's time to prepare this. And I appreciate the opportunity to have a partnership with this school board on something that hopefully will be transformative in how we, the beach, are perceived nationally, but also by the youth of our nation as a really cool place to want to hang out and find a job and be a part of a contributing society. And I'm here with my assistant city manager for special projects, whose entire life has been consumed by this, and he hopes to get home for dinner before midnight tonight once we conclude actions here and then back at City Hall. And I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
I think several of us have some questions, so thank you for coming.
Just prior to questions, let me, because some of you indicated you hadn't had a chance to see the email that had the MOA in it. Let me just speak quickly to a few bullet points that were included in that email. So we have the MOA that at this stage is finalized, and the agreement, as you heard, is between VBCPS and the city, not between VBCPS and the Something in the Water LLC. School buses will be available based on this MOA starting on Friday, April the 26th at 5 p.m. That'll conclude at 11 p.m. on Sunday, April 28th. It will not affect transportation for any VBCPS official activities. Drivers in the MOA, drivers must volunteer and cannot be required to provide services. They have to volunteer to do so. The city will reimburse, as you heard the city manager speak to, the city will reimburse VBCPS for all costs. You also heard that the city is going to be providing insurance and will reimburse VBCPS for any damages that occurred during the event use. Weapons are not allowed on buses. That's a part of, as you all know, the Safe and Gun-Free Schools Act. And so we will have a security check that will be conducted before passengers board our buses. VBCPS will provide buses to transport people from a makeshift parking area the location of which I think has shifted this afternoon to the amphitheater, correct, Mr. Hanson?
That's correct.
And so then drivers will be paid $30 per hour before 8 p.m., $40 per hour thereafter, and overtime will be provided as needed and appropriate for any drivers who've worked beyond 40 hours in the week. Drivers will also be compensated 1 additional hour to clean their bus. So with that, I will stop and we'll open it up for any additional comments from Mr. Freeman or any questions from the board.
We're here for your questions.
Mrs. Hughes?
I'm not against this festival. I'm not necessarily against using buses. I have kind of a problem that the city manager was approached on March 11th and approached the superintendent on the 15th and referred to the board as being his partner. It appears that we were to be a silent partner because I heard about this on Facebook when a friend posted it, and apparently there had already been a bus drivers meeting at that point. We received information today. It was emailed to us at 3 o'clock. Most of us were en route here, so didn't even get to read it before now. That shouldn't happen. And this is the last meeting before the festival, so we're kind of held hostage. It's kind of do or die right now. And we're informed that after we vote on this, there could still be changes to the contract. So we're not even necessarily voting on a final draft. I'm not sure how we're a partner with the city. Why was it done this way?
So I'll speak to what I can speak to relative to that. It was not my intention to have the board as a silent partner. We were seeking to get a finalized draft before I shared details. As I shared a moment ago, details of that were changing even as late as today as we're trying to sort out how we make this work. And so there were questions that I had that I wanted to have answered that I had indicated to Mrs. Linetti and to Mr. Freeman that were non-negotiables for me relative particularly to security. And so I did not want to share information that I felt might change because then that would just create and add confusion to the scenario. So it was my intention, and I had been working during the course of last week in particular to try to get the MOA finalized, and we weren't able to do that. I did not get that until today.
Mr. Edwards?
The magnitude and complexity of this, and I think anybody that's not been under a rock here in the last few weeks understands this is indeed a moving target and moving in an incredibly positive direction for our city. And Ms. Hughes, I'm like you. I would have much preferred to have it in the agenda package last week, but I do understand why it's not, and there are occasions where you have to do a quick read and make sure you've got all the facts and then vote. I will say initially, except for the provision in the council's resolution, this is really an operational item, which our superintendent is certainly empowered to employ our assets safely without in ensuring that they're not put in harm's way and our people are kept safe. I don't, as it initially broke out as a need, I was not even anticipating the board necessarily having to vote on it. Now, the fact that our counterparts on the council opted to ensure that we were read into it, that's appreciated. But again, I put a lot of confidence and faith in our superintendent, and that, the operational details and the things that we're talking about tonight are really day-to-day operations, and they're not necessarily we certainly could have approved at a policy level, but the details within the MOU are certainly operational and not in either policy. Our assets are indeed a community asset that could and should always be used to further things in our city. And just as we do with our buildings on a ongoing basis for nonprofit groups and others, as long as our assets can be effectively employed on them, not to interfere basis with the educational processes. I am a huge supporter of that, and I think that's been pretty well laid out across the years in terms of building use and stuff. And I'm excited that our bus fleet could potentially provide the support for this festival. Thank you.
Mrs. Weems?
Thank you. I've just got a few questions that were actually asked of me from community members and bus drivers, and I didn't know the answers, so I'm going to ask them, and so I can report back. How many buses do you expect that we're using? And forgive me if this was in our memo or something that was sent today, but I was in meetings.
So when the plan was at the original site location, it was approximately 70 buses. Given that it is moved in locations, or the potential is it's going to move locations, we're going to have to look at the numbers again. In addition to that, because of the limitation of us being able to do our business until 5 o'clock on Friday, they're going to have to bring buses in. So that may affect the total number, because any buses that they have will require less buses from us at that point. So we still need to work out those details.
Okay. And then do we have enough volunteers, enough bus drivers to fill all those buses?
Yes. So as the president of the Bus Drivers Association mentioned a little bit earlier, it's over 400 volunteers that we had.
And is this done for bus rides on a need basis, or when they buy their tickets, do they reserve a place? Or what if you do 75 buses and not as many people show up, you only need 50, or vice versa, you need 150?
So I will start with that one. I believe that's a detail that will need to be worked out as we progress. Right now, we're really working on the big picture, making sure that we have general agreements with the MOA. And as we get to closer, because you can project that if it's a rain type of event, that it will be a different turnout. And I would imagine that we would make the most effective use of our buses if there was not a great turnout, rather than having a bunch of buses sitting there not moving anybody.
Okay, and with the security check that Dr. Spence mentioned, I mean, obviously, I guess you're going to check every person that gets on the bus for weapons. Is this going to be checking for drugs and alcohol, or?
It's designed as a weapons check.
Just weapons. Okay. Okay, I'm a kindergarten bus driver. I volunteer to take people to and back from. I have the 11 o'clock shift. Or is that the last shift every night, 11?
No, it'll go later than that.
In there
I
too, or
believe
something?
3:30.
Oh, gosh. Okay. I'm getting old. But I guess, people stay out that late, don't they? Okay, so, okay, so, I mean, of course we expect, and we know in Virginia Beach we act just great all the time, but sometimes when we party, and, we might have some people drinking too much. So as far as the bus driver being able to handle a very excited, rowdy group of bus people on the way home, is there only one bus driver on that bus? And what happens if there's some problems with the people that are being transported?
Yes, there's only one bus driver on the bus. I'm going to give you the big picture, then I'm going to call our transportation expert to come up here. But essentially, they're going to have radio communications during the course of the event. I'll let David give you the more detail.
We have a plan in place for, fortunately, most of the drivers who have volunteered are some of our very best senior drivers who handled middle school kids and junior high school kids and rowdy kids. So they're pretty good at that. But we will have a two-way radio system. We're going to have our support staff. My supervisors are going to be at each location, so the drivers see a friendly face, and if they got a problem, they can talk to a supervisor. We're going to have a dispatcher on call in the main office, so if they have a problem, there's no police officer readily available, they can call that and get assistance. So we think the bus drivers are real comfortable with that. And just as a point of clarification, the only meeting we've had with the bus drivers is we had our in-service meetings, and it was just an opportunity for us to see how many of you would do this, because we had to know if there was going to be enough to volunteer before we even said, yes, we can provide the number of buses. And you got to remember that it's not 70 buses for the total duration. It sort of cranks in at 10 to start with, then we add another 10 later on, and then another 15 at various points during the festival hours based on the prediction of how many will show up. To your point of, okay, you get all these buses there and you don't need them, what do you do? The organization, the promoter, has hired a transportation logistics person that does this for a living, and they will be the ones that will make the call. If we're sitting there with a lot of buses we're not using, then we would make adjustments and send those buses back to their homes. And we plan to, the good news is we got enough drivers that we can rotate these buses out in about 5-hour shifts. Why is that good? Well, if you put a bus on at 5 o'clock Friday afternoon and it comes off the road at 11 o'clock Sunday night, it's going to be probably in worse shape than it would be if we rotate it out every 5 hours and get it off the road and get it back and get it cleaned up.
Okay. I just hope there's not, too many bus drivers that are wanting to do this and they find out that they end up not having a job, but,
Well, we're gonna,
yeah.
it's funny you should mention that. We met today based on the needs and the shifts that we can have. And it is our intent, everybody who volunteered, if we can give them a piece of this, we are. And we do this by seniority because that was been the agreement with the Bus Driver Association for years and years and years on a lot of things. So we will use as many drivers as we can to give them a piece of
Okay, good. Well, I was glad to hear from the president of the Bus Drivers Association. That really helped me a lot too. And Mr. Pace, God bless you, because I can't imagine the logistics nightmare that you've been working with lately and that you will work with in the next few weeks with this and that weekend. So, but thank you so much.
It's called having a good staff, Mrs. Williams. I got good people.
I know you do. I know you. Thank you.
Before we move on, I want to remind everybody that this motion that's on the floor is actually to authorize our superintendent to execute the memorandum of agreement for the use of the school buses with the city event Something in the Water. So as we vote for this, the details that have been given to us already, I'm satisfied with all those details, realizing that we are authorizing Dr. Spence to execute this agreement. And if there are any additional changes, Dr. Spence has already told me that he plans to let us know if there's anything that changes.
Yeah, just to speak to that briefly, the MOA, one of the significant changes that we were making today as we were beginning to understand that the number, for example, it had 70 buses, the number you heard is an original number in the MOA today. We removed that and we simply put in a statement that we would come to agreement about the number of buses with the city as part of the MOA. So we created a little bit more space for generalities so that in those scenarios where we had to be flexible, we would have the ability to do that through the MOA. And so the MOA, I don't anticipate shifting in any major way. I mean, any shift to it would be small detailed things. But details may shift relative to how many buses, like you just heard, relative to where we might be picking people up and those kinds of things. So we've left ourselves space to do those outside of the MOA that would just be administrative in nature once we've executed the MOA.
Thank you. Mrs. Manning?
Yeah, I've got a lot of questions here. First of all, I want to echo what Ms. Hughes said. I completely agree with you. I also do support the Something in the Water event. I think it's fantastic. I am so thankful for all of the local citizens, Mr. Williams included, but I first heard about an idea like this from a regular citizen about 2 years ago, Mr. Pyrie Burton, a good friend of mine. And so I'm so thankful for this. I hope it is the greatest event that we've had in the city. I'm really disappointed with how this has been presented to the board and that we're forced to vote on it at the same time we're getting all of this information, because we're not hearing from the taxpayers who own these buses. And that's my biggest concern with this. Mr. Edwards mentioned that this is an operational item. From my discussions with our attorney, that's not the case. The school board does not have, the school board can't allow our buses to be used for a private event. So we have to enter in a contract with the city, and that has to be done by the school board, correct? And I watched the city council meeting, and Mr. Stiles addressed this situation. He agreed that that was the case, that the school board is entering into agreement with the city council. It's not the superintendent entering into an agreement with the city manager?
Well, very technically, every contract is entered into by the school board. The school board is the only legal entity. Virginia Beach City Public Schools is not actually a legal entity. So all contracts done here are with the school board. Very few contracts does the school board itself have the chair sign on their behalf. The superintendent, and there's thousands of contracts a year, signs all of them. So the actual contracting entity for anything in schools would be the school board. Virginia Code 22.1.182 has restrictions on what you can use school buses for. Generally, it has to be a government agency that does it, or there are a couple other minor exceptions, primarily having to do with elderly people, emergency circumstances, or disabled people. So when we were looking at city attorney's office looking at it, we said we cannot contract with something in the water. However, there are circumstances where we do enter in MOAs, and we've had an MOA for a number of years with the city council, particularly dealing with Parks and Rec situation. So we provided transportation for them too. So our suggestion to them was find a way that we can enter into that. We could have amended the 2014 MOA for transportation, or we could simply write another one. We thought it'd be more efficient to write a specific one for this, since this at the moment is a one-time event that we're dealing with on there. So in the sense that the contracting agency is the school board, correct. The statute does not require that the school board vote on it. You can follow your own procedure. So in this case, your contracting procedure allows the superintendent to, and you have many MOAs that the superintendent signs on behalf of the school division. I think the city council got involved and wanted to make sure that the school board was okay with this so that it didn't backfire later on them, that the school board voted against that. So that situation came up, but very technically all contracts are with the school board.
Okay. And in the future, if a topic like this presents itself, I'd really like to hear it from the superintendent rather than a citizen calling me on the phone a couple weeks after you've been notified. So, this is a very public thing, and for citizens to come to school board members and tell us what's going on rather than us knowing first, I would really like that to change. And then it's my understanding that I watched the last city council meeting, and I heard the motion that was made and voted on, and they voted to end the time on Sunday evening at 7 p.m. I understand they were taking that up for another vote this evening. Can you tell me how that vote turned out and what was decided?
Madam Chair.
Please.
Yes, this evening, the city council called a special session. They took a step back. The same fashion Mr. Edwards talks about in operations, and removed that line. The agreement requires the Sunday shift for bus drivers shall conclude on or prior to 7 p.m. They struck that.
They struck that. What was that vote? What was that vote number?
It was 8-1.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now I'll just go through my list of questions here. Are we meeting all ADA compliance requirements?
There's going to be 65 regular 64 passenger buses and 5 handicap wheelchair equipped buses. So yes, we'll have that availability.
Okay, and all of our, so you said originally that there were about 400 drivers that volunteered. It's my understanding that we've lost some of those volunteers. What's your total volunteer?
I haven't got the most updated figures, but
Okay.
we have
a lot.
We have a
You have
lot.
plenty.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Cargo on board. Are we going to allow coolers, beach umbrellas if it's nice that weekend?
We had a long discussion with the promoter. They have a long list of prohibited items that can go on a school, on any of their modes of transportation. We do have to allow strollers, but I think coolers and beer kegs and all those kind of things are prohibited.
Please don't
Among
allow beer kegs.
I haven't seen the total list, but when I asked that question, they say we have a very lengthy list of prohibited items that they can bring on the school bus.
Okay.
Or on a bus or transportation of any kind.
Okay. And how will that be enforced?
They're going, as I understand it, they got to buy a ticket to get on the bus. And as they get the ticket, then of course the signage is there. These items are prohibited, and all the other things that they will be doing for the passengers, whether it's wanding or metal detectors or whatever. All that instruction will be given to them when they buy their ticket to get on the bus.
Okay. And so the instructions are given to them. What if they show up with a cooler in their hands? How's the bus driver going to enforce that?
So it's not the bus driver, just a reminder, before anybody gets on the bus, they're going to be checked by security that it's going to be.
There's going to be security at each
SITW
bus.
step. At the loading point, there will, and both at the loading point in the parking lot and at the loading point at the festival, there will be security who will be checking every passenger before they get on our buses.
Okay, great.
And I will have my supervisors there as well for
Okay.
assistance.
And there's a Virginia code I was notified of that when a bus is being used for private purposes, all the warning lights have to be covered. Do we have?
Yeah, I bought magnetic tape. Actually, the lights, the reason the lights used to have to be covered is because when you open the doors, the lights came on. The only reason for that code is that the state police wanted that code in there so that when buses were being used other than transporting children to and from school and school-related activities, it would not confuse the motoring public with the flashing lights and the school bus sign and so forth. So now the new buses don't necessarily, the lights don't come on when you open the door. The driver has to activate them because they don't, they will not be activating them at all. But we did buy magnetic tape this wide and that long to cover up school bus.
Okay. Another topic that City Council had put in their last motion, I don't know if they've changed anything on this, is that that the concert promoter or the event provider of this had to provide the liability insurance. Have they met those requirements?
We have drawn up a reimbursement and indemnification agreement. They have reviewed that. They are in agreement with it, and I will execute it as soon as they sign it.
So they've provided documentation that they can insure?
They will make reimbursement for all costs associated with any legal instances associated with accidents or accidents associated with
But
the
do we
buses.
know that they're good for that?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. I'm about to go down my list. Some of them have already been answered. Okay, and then, Mr. Pace, you've been helping me ever since my kids were in elementary school, and anytime I had a problem, you were right on it. And
I'm old.
you do an incredible job
Thank you, Ms.
managing
Knight.
our transportation department. So I know you can do this, and I know that you will do your best, and you will make sure that our bus drivers are safe. I just wanted to ask you a question. Do you think it's a good idea for us to do this?
I think it's a good opportunity for our drivers, and I think it's a good opportunity for us as a city to, coordinate and cooperate with each other to make it happen. I really do. And I would only be reluctant if my drivers had come up and said, we're not going to participate in this. We don't care what the salary is. We're just not going to do it. But they are just so excited about this. It's really motivated me to step up my game to make sure that everything is right for them, because that's
Right.
what I do it for. I do it for my drivers, not
Right.
necessarily for anything else.
And I think that was kind of, that's one of the big deciding factors for me is how the drivers feel about it. So, like, as Ms. Weems said. So, thank you for all your hard work. One final question. I know that we've put a lot of our staff resources, Ms. Linetti said earlier that she has redone this MOA 13 times. So, pulling her away from her duties to our division, and I know that I'm sure Mr. Freeman and Mr. Pace and all your folks have put in so much time. Has there been any consideration to having our division reimbursed financially for that time by the
Well,
event promoters?
In my particular cost and what I'm doing, your school board policy has a bullet in there that says we charge 16% administrative cost above and beyond the costs that you incur. So I don't know how long ago that 16% was put in there, and I don't know if it still covers all the costs, but we do have that amount of money that we do put into the cost factoring when we send the invoices.
Okay. Yeah, and I'd just like to point out for future reference, that's a huge impact on our division. To be able to do this and to make it happen, taking our legal team away from their duties for our students and taking Mr. Pace away from his duties for our students and our transportation department. That's a sacrifice. And so I think that that's something that should be considered in the future if something like this ever presents itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Manning. I have one question, real quick question. This afternoon, I heard, I got it. I heard that the salary was for the bus drivers was adjusted a little bit. Can you clarify that, please?
No, ma'am, the salary has not been adjusted. I calculated the salary, since they are mostly senior drivers.
Right.
I calculated their salary of $20, which more of our senior drivers make around $20 an hour.
Right.
And time and a half is 30, up till 8 o'clock. And in most organizations, for the graveyard shift, it's double time.
Okay.
And that's why I calculated those costs.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Felton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question about, no, we're going to use our buses, but did we look into using other public or other transportation like HRT or the jobs that we had? Were there any investigation in that at all?
Yes, ma'am. They went as far as to talk to Maryland school districts to see if they were available to come down. There was some enthusiasm about it. They've reached as far as Mississippi to find tourism buses, large coach buses. Everything on the East Coast is pretty booked. As you know, that weekend we got the tattoo in Norfolk, and City of Virginia Beach is sponsoring 44 of those major buses loads in the hotels. It kind of answers the question about why all the hotels are full. We got a whole lot going on in the region for that weekend. And, you know, this is the first time out, and so we'll deconflict those events. But they are going to use coaches. People have an opportunity to rent a coach and come down from DC, come in from Richmond. Those coaches will be coming in. And just brief to the council tonight is what's called a pop-up church. It's going to happen. You got a briefing there in SeaTac the other night, but it's catching on like wildfire. It's going to be Sunday morning, late morning. It's going to run all the way to the evening. Got some of the top performers in the gospel music business coming, and they're going to use the coaches to bring the congregations from a myriad of major churches throughout all of Hampton Roads, and we're going to be bringing them down Shore Drive and coming down from the north, and that whole entire second stage is going to be set up to the north of the current fishing pier, so it's going to be separated from the major pop stage. It's going to be on 5th Street, and so just not enough of those things available. And with 400 volunteers, all going to get a better paycheck and say they were there participating and contributing and being a part of it, it really demonstrates our collaboration, our partnership to do this together.
Thank you. And I just want to write down to a little bit of observation and just say that you mentioned cultural wellness, and we mentioned economical opportunities. Mm-hmm. We mentioned strong partnerships between the city council and school board. But I come up with this philosophy, and I just like to say this: as the fog is lifting and we're getting more of the information, I just like to say that when I speak to our students that are graduating from Virginia Beach City Public Schools, and when they're going off to pursue their careers and become famous or whatever they become to do, I always say to them, always remember to reach back, come home, and give what you have accomplished back to the community. And somewhere along the line, we've missed out that 2 of these entertainers that's going to come here were students at Princess Anne High School. 2 of them are residents of Virginia Beach. So for me, it's just homegrown people coming home, giving back to the community. And I know the logistics didn't come down like we wanted it to come down, or the dignity or the integrity of how the entertainers wanted it to unfold. But I just want to say these are just our students that we have educated coming back home to roots to give back to the community. And I just want to put the observation there because this particular event, Something in the Water, evolved from College Week. And I was one of the observers when they were having it at the beach, when it wasn't this much organization into it. But I remember at the time, Captain Pat Gallagher down at the 2nd Precinct set out and reached out to the community to make sure that it went out as well as it could. And then after Pat Gallagher left, then we had Captain Sean Adams to come down and do the same thing. So it's good to see that the city has taken hold of this and has organized it to make it look like what the students wanted to look like, something with dignity and integrity. And thank you again, Mr. Pace, for all that you've done. I know this was a hard job. And like they've been saying all along, we were getting the information after the fact. And as Mr. Hanson said before, I've attended more civic leagues meetings in the past week, other than school board meetings, to get these things rolled out and corrected. But I just like to, for observation, let the people know these are our students who went to school here. And these are residents that lived here, and then they're coming back to give back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Felton. That was very enlightening also. And I just want to reiterate, thank you for all your hard work to make this happen. I do believe in my heart that this is our opportunity to be a partner with the city. We enjoy that partnership, and we look forward to that weekend. Thank you. So is there any other comments or questions? We're ready for the motion. I'll reiterate it real quick. Read the motion real quick. The motion is to authorize the superintendent to execute the memorandum of understanding, MOA. It's memorandum of agreement, MOA, for the use of school buses with the city for the city event. Something's in the water.
So move.
Okay. It was already been moved.
Oh, who moved it?
We did it earlier. We did not have a motion?
No,
Okay,
no.
I thought we did. Okay.
Yeah.
Dan has made the motion. Mrs. Melnick has seconded. Thought we already did that. Okay. So, the voting board is open. And the motion has passed. Do we have any standing committee reports this evening? Mrs. Rye? Mrs. Rye or Mrs. Riggs? Both. Okay, first Mrs. Riggs and then Mrs. Rye. Sorry.
I just want to report on Sister Cities, and our breakfast was very successful. I want to thank all of our school board members that were able to come. There were 7 of us there, and Dr. Spence, who was one of our leaders, because it was a leadership breakfast, he came and spoke and shared the importance of our students being involved in our sister cities and reaching across the water and to European countries and other countries to just embrace communication and good relationships with other cities and other countries. And I appreciate that, Dr. Spence. I appreciate our school board members. I'm sorry that the ones that were not unable to come did not make it, and I didn't hear back from you, so I didn't see it. So anyway, I appreciate everybody that came. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Rye?
Yes, just to note that the next policy review committee meeting is Thursday, 1 o'clock, and the strategic planning committee meets at, I think it's 4 o'clock.
Are there any others? Mrs. Weems?
Just to remind everybody that Saturday, May 4th, is the Green Run Collegiate Gala. It's going to be a great event, only $35 before the event. And then May 4th at the door, you got to pay $45. So I've got tickets up here. It's going to be at the American Dream Theater up at Town Center, Ziders, up at Town Center, and there's going to be a reception, a silent auction, and then 2 of the performances, musicals. Okay, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see y'all there. Thank you.
Any other standing committee reports? Okay. That concludes our formal meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on non-agenda items?
Yes, ma'am, we do. We'll transition in just a moment.
actually makes it stop itching. Get much of this. I don't care. At least I'll be able to get to sleep a little bit. I'm not gonna put up with this nonsense.
Ready? Thank you. We have three speakers. We have Kate Nelson, then Caroline Nelson, and Sarah Clark.